The room was dimly lit, the cheap perfume in the air barely covering the stale scent of sweat and regret. I sat on the edge of the bed, counting the crumpled bills in my hand while the man behind me snored softly. Another night, another transaction, another piece of my soul chipped away. I had convinced myself this was just survival, that I was in control, that I was doing what I had to do. The world had never given me anything for free, so why should I feel guilty for taking what I could get? I had long stopped believing in love, in goodness, in hope. Those were fairy tales told to little girls before they learned the truth, before the world chewed them up and spit them out. I had been taught early that no one was coming to save me, that if I wanted anything in life, I had to take it, and if that meant selling my body, so be it. I told myself I was fine, that I wasn't one of those girls who lost themselves in drugs or drank themselves numb, that I was different, smarter, stronger. But deep down in the silence that came after the men left, when I was alone in that dark room staring at the ceiling, I knew the truth. I was empty, and I didn't know how to fix it. That night, I walked the streets like I had done so many times before. The neon lights flickered overhead, the air thick with the mix of gasoline, cigarette smoke, and desperation. I pulled my coat tighter around my body, not because I was cold, but because I felt exposed. Something was different. I couldn't explain it, but there was a heaviness in my chest that wouldn't go away, an unease that made my skin crawl, as if something unseen was watching me. I shook it off and kept walking. Then, out of nowhere, pain exploded in my chest. I gasped, my legs giving out beneath me, my hands clutching at my shirt as if that would somehow stop the pain. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, my vision blurred. I tried to scream for help, but my voice wouldn't come. I collapsed onto the sidewalk, the world tilting around me, my breaths coming in short, desperate gasps. And then, everything went black. I expected to wake up in a hospital. Instead, I woke up in nothingness. At first I thought I was dreaming, but dreams didn't feel this real. The air was thick, heavy, suffocating. I couldn't see walls, or a floor, or even my own body. Just endless darkness stretching in every direction. Then I heard them. The whispers. Soft at first, then louder, repeating my own words. I don't need anyone. I make my own choices. God isn't real. A cold chill ran through me. I turned, trying to find the source of the voices. But there was nothing. Just shadows, moving, shifting, circling, waiting for me. And then from somewhere deep in the darkness, a voice spoke. You sold your body, but what you really sold was your soul. I froze. The voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It came from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. And I knew it was true. I turned in every direction, searching for something, anything that would tell me where I was. But there was nothing. No walls, no sky, no ground beneath me, just a vast, endless emptiness stretching in every direction. It wasn't just dark, it was void, a silence so thick it pressed against me, swallowing even the sound of my own breathing. And then came the voices. They weren't yelling, they weren't screaming, but they filled the air around me like whispers in the wind, weaving through the darkness, wrapping around me like unseen hands. At first, they were quiet, distant, but with each passing second, they grew louder, more urgent, more accusing. You thought you were in control. You thought you were free. You thought you were the one using them, but all along, you were the one being used. I clutched my arms, my breath coming in short, shaky gasps. No, I whispered. That's not true. But it was true, because I had spent years telling myself I was fine, that I wasn't like the others, that I had made my own choices, built my own life, survived on my own terms, that I had power. But standing here in this place where there were no lies, no masks, no escape, I realized the truth. I had been a slave, not just to the men who paid for my time, not just to the money, the lifestyle, the endless cycle of pretending I was in control, but to something much worse. Something that had owned me from the moment I had walked away from God. The shadows around me moved, shifting, creeping closer. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. The whispers weren't just around me anymore. They were inside me, repeating every lie I had ever told myself, every moment I had justified my sins, every excuse I had made for why I didn't need to change. I had thought I was choosing my own path, but now I realized I had been led here all along, and there was no way out. Then, just as the shadows were about to consume me, something changed. A light, not a distant flicker, not a dim glow. A blazing, overwhelming, unstoppable light bursting through the darkness like an explosion. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, pulling away from me as if the light was burning them, and in the center of it, I saw him. Jesus. I had spent my entire life cursing his name, mocking people who believed in him, laughing at the idea that he was anything more than a fantasy for weak people. But now, standing before him, I knew the truth. He was real, and he had come for me. His gaze met mine, and in that instant, I felt everything I had ever done laid bare before him. There were no excuses, no arguments, no justifications. He saw everything, every sin, every lie, every moment I had turned away from him. I should have felt shame. I should have felt fear, but all I felt was love. A love so overwhelming, so powerful, so unlike anything I had ever known, that my knees buckled beneath me. I collapsed, sobbing, my entire body shaking as the weight of everything I had ever done came crashing down on me. I had been so wrong. I had spent my life rejecting him, denying him, convincing myself that I didn't need him. But here, in his presence, I finally understood. I had always needed him. I looked up at him, my vision blurred with tears, my hands trembling as I reached out. "Please," I whispered. "I don't want to go back." Jesus didn't speak, but I felt his answer in my soul. "Come home." And the moment those words filled me, the darkness around me shattered. The whispers were gone. The fear was gone. The weight I had carried for so long was gone. And in its place was peace. The kind of peace I had spent my whole life searching for, but had never found. And then, everything faded. I gasped, my lungs filling with air as if I had been drowning. The brightness of the hospital lights burned into my eyes, making me wince. My body ached. My head throbbed, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was really here or if I was still trapped in that terrible, suffocating darkness. But then I heard the beeping of machines, the low murmur of voices, the feeling of cool sheets beneath my fingertips. I was alive. I blinked, trying to adjust, my breathing still ragged. Slowly, I turned my head and saw a woman sitting beside my bed, gripping my hands so tightly it was as if she was holding me to this world. My mother. Tears streaked her face, her lips moving in whispered prayers for me. She had always prayed for me, even when I had mocked her faith. Even when I had laughed in her face and told her I wanted nothing to do with God. Even when I had told her I was fine, that I didn't need saving, that I was doing just fine on my own. And yet, here she was, still loving me, still praying for me. And for the first time in my life, I wanted those prayers. "Mom." My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper, but she heard it. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock before she let out a sob and threw herself over me, holding me like she would never let go. "Oh, my baby," she choked out, her body shaking against mine. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus." Tears burned down my face. I wasn't the kind of person who cried, who showed weakness, but now I didn't care. I had been seconds away from never seeing her again. I had been seconds away from hell. And Jesus had saved me, not because I had deserved it, but because he had never stopped loving me, even when I had spent my life running from him. That night, I lay awake in my hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I had spent so many years believing I was in control, that I had chosen my own life, that I had built myself up from nothing, that I was strong, independent, and didn't need anyone, especially not God. But I knew the truth now. I had never been in control, and I had been walking toward destruction from the moment I had turned away from him. Tears slipped down my cheeks as I whispered into the silence, "I'm sorry, God." I had spent my whole life rejecting him, and yet he had still saved me. That was the kind of love I had never known, the kind of love I had spent my whole life running from. And now I knew. I never wanted to run again. But if I wasn't going back to the life I had before, then who was I now? I didn't know how to be this new person. I had spent so many years surviving, clawing my way through life, doing whatever it took to stay afloat. But now, everything I had built for myself was gone. The money, the power, the illusion of control. It all felt empty now. It had never truly belonged to me. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to admit it. The day I was discharged from the hospital, my mother was there waiting for me. She hadn't let go of my hand since I had woken up. I could see the relief in her face, but also something else, something deeper. She knew. She could see it in my eyes, hear it in my voice. I wasn't the same daughter she had prayed over for years, and she was right. I wasn't. We drove home in silence, the hum of the car engine the only sound between us. I stared out the window, watching the city pass by, the same streets I had walked for years, the same corners where I had built a life for myself. But now, it felt different, like I was looking at a world I didn't belong to anymore. Finally, my mother spoke. "What are you going to do now?" The question settled deep inside me. I had no idea. I had spent my entire life believing that my body was my only way to survive, that my worth was measured in how much I could earn, how much attention I could get, how many men wanted me. But now, I knew the truth. I had always been worth more than that, and I had never needed to sell myself to survive. Tears filled my eyes as I turned to her, my voice breaking. "I don't want to go back, Mom." She smiled, squeezing my hand. "Then don't." Walking away from that life wasn't easy. I had no job, no money, no idea where to begin. The world I had lived in didn't let women just walk away. It wasn't that simple. I had burned bridges, severed ties, told myself I didn't need help. And now I had no one but my mother and a God I had only just begun to understand. But somehow that was enough. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being poor. I wasn't afraid of struggling. I was only afraid of losing the truth I had been given. I started going to church again, sitting in the back, too ashamed to lift my head at first. I felt unworthy, like everyone around me could see who I had been, could hear the things I had done, could somehow know the years I had spent running from this very place. But no one looked at me like that. They didn't see a broken woman. They saw someone who had been redeemed. Because that's what Jesus does. He doesn't just forgive, he restores. And the more I learned about him, the more I realized I wasn't just meant to sit in a pew listening to sermons. I wasn't just meant to be someone who had been saved and left it at that. I was meant to go back. Not to my old life. Not to the streets or the clubs or the men who had once held power over me. But to the women still trapped there, because I knew something they didn't. I knew what was waiting for them if they didn't turn back, and I knew the one who could set them free. It started as small conversations, quiet moments with women I had once worked with, women who were still selling themselves because they thought they had no other way. Some of them laughed at me, some told me I was crazy, some rolled their eyes and walked away, but some listened. Some looked at me with that same fear I had felt, that deep hidden realization that maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong. And when they asked me, "But how do I get out?" I gave them the only answer that mattered. Jesus. Months passed, then years. The woman I had been died in that alley. In her place stood someone new, someone healed, someone saved. Someone who had finally found the love she had been searching for her entire life, not in money or men or power, but in the God who had never stopped chasing her, even when she had spent her life running from him. I had once thought my body was all I had to offer. Now, I knew my story was my greatest weapon because I had once been lost. And now I was proof that no one is too far gone for Jesus to bring them home. One night, long after I had left that world behind, I got a message. It was from a woman I had worked with years ago. "I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know how to get out." I felt tears fill my eyes as I typed back. "You don't have to do it alone. Come home." Jesus had saved me, not just from hell, not just from death, but from myself, and now it was my turn to bring others home, not with judgment, not with shame, but with the same love that had saved me from the darkness, the love of Jesus Christ. Same love that had saved me from the darkness, the love of Jesus Christ.